based on your time with her, was Maggie Murdaugh anxious about anything?
She was concerned about the amount of money that they were requesting on that lawsuit.
You saw Blanca Simpson on the stand at Alex Murdaugh's double murder trial. Now she's here with me telling all.
There were too many things going around that were untrue about Maggie and who she was.
And she has the latest on Maggie's dog, Bubba, who rocked the trial and blew up Alex Murdaugh's alibi. I'm Angenette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Let me tell you something. Morgan & Morgan is a law firm that wins a lot. That's why they are one of America's largest personal injury law firms. The firm has more than 1,000 attorneys who have recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. In the last few months alone, a client in Florida received $12 million when the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, another client was awarded $26 million. That was 40 times the insurer's offer. Morgan & Morgan makes it really easy to fight for what you deserve. You can even start a claim from your phone. So if you're ever injured, you can start a claim at forthepeople.com/crimefix. Click the link below or scan the QR code that you see right there on your screen. Alex Murdaugh is in a South Carolina prison serving 2 consecutive life sentences for the murders of his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul. Maggie and Paul were shot to death on June 7, 2021 at the family's Moselle hunting property in Colleton County, South Carolina. At his trial, which was basically the trial of the century down there in South Carolina, Alex insisted he did not murder Maggie and Paul.
On June 7th, 2021, did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day or any time?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take a 300 blackout such as this and fire it into your wife Maggie's leg, torso, or any part of her body?
No, I did not.
Did you shoot a 300 blackout into her head, causing her death?
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime. Ever.
To this day, Alex Murdaugh maintains he had nothing to do with Maggie and Paul's murders, and he's appealing his conviction to the South Carolina Supreme Court. There was one piece of evidence, though, at Alex's trial that seemed to blow his entire story apart. Remember, he said he wasn't at the kennels initially with Paul and Maggie that night, but a video that detectives later found on Paul's cell phone after the Secret Service was able to unlock it rocked Alex's story.
Get back. Get back. Quit, Cash. Come. Quit. It's okay. Come here. It's not bad. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. Post it. Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Bubba.
Hey, Bubba.
That's a guinea.
This is a chicken.
Come here, Bubba.
Come here, Cash.
Come here, Bubba.
Cash. Quit.
That was Alex Murdaugh at the kennels yelling to the family's dog, Bubba, minutes before detectives said that Paul and Maggie were shot to death. Bubba was Maggie Murdaugh's favorite dog, and now he is with one of her good friends and former housekeeper, Blanca Simpson. More on that later. You are not going to want to miss that. You saw Blanca Simpson testify at the trial.
You've also, I think, in multiple interviews with Sweat and other folks, described, I think the words were, Maggie was his all. Isn't that what you told Sweat?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean, Maggie was his all?
He He adored her. He loved her. He adored her.
Worshipped her. I mean, just treated her as somebody he adored, correct?
Exactly.
Did you ever see them have any arguments?
I never saw them have arguments. It was just minor disagreement because of the remodeling.
Blanca has actually had Bubba since Maggie and Paul were murdered, and she's going to tell us all about how Bubba is doing. So please stay tuned for that. Blanca has now written a book about her friend Maggie Murdaugh and how close they were and what a good person she was. So I want to bring in Blanca Simpson. She is the author of Within the House of Murdaugh. She was the housekeeper, but also a friend of Maggie Murdaugh. So Blanca, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. The book is beautifully written, and I want to ask you, first of all, why did you decide to write this book?
Because there were too many things going around that were untrue about Maggie and who she was. There was a lot of villainization behind it. I just didn't like the way that she was being personified in public. When it wasn't really the Maggie that I knew, the Maggie, who she was, and that's one of the reasons, I decided to speak out about that.
What were the things going around that you thought needed to be cleared up? The things that weren't true that were floating around about Maggie?
Well, first of all, that fur wearing, high and mighty socialite, and talking about, that having her maids, do everything for her, and just commentary that was being spun around to make her look like she was one of these high and mighty, high class women that had that she really didn't care about anybody but herself. And that was it. That was untrue. And I just did not like that. And I think some of it could be considered, envious people, and you can kind of tell. And some, it was just plain ugliness coming from people that didn't really know her, based on what they were hearing about her. And I just figured I'd just tell some stories, who she was behind closed doors, how, stuff that we got into, that sort of thing. So people could see who she truly was.
You guys had a unique friendship. I mean, because you had worked at the law firm for Alec and his family, but then, and you had done some work there, but then, they brought you on to work at the house, but you guys became friends. I mean, you talked about this when you testified at the trial.
We did.
And you write about it in the book. And your co-author, Mary Weaver, did a great job, Mary Frances Weaver, with you in telling this story. I love how the book starts out. And you talk about the dream and how you had this dream. She came to you, that Maggie came to you in a dream and basically said, take care of it. And she wanted you to tell her story. Talk to me a little bit about that, because it sounds like it was very vivid.
Before the dream, when her mother had contacted me, we had spoken a little bit about it. She had received the news. It was right after the roadside shooting. I saw her mother, and she was told the news about what happened, and they were gathered at Moselle. That's the last time that I had gone to Moselle. And I remember we were talking, and Miss Kennedy said, Blanca, I trust you with this. And I told her, I said, I feel her around me all the time. I still want to call her and talk to her. And she says, I know. She said, I want to do the same thing. And then about I don't know, maybe about a week or so later, it was kind of odd. I can kind of feel the presence. I don't know how to explain it. I could just feel like I was really emotional, and I remember I wasn't feeling well, and I lay down, and my husband, my husband said I fell asleep, and later on in the evening, maybe about like 2 in the morning, between 2 and 3 in the morning, I remember he started trying to wake me up because it got emotional. It got to the point where it was emotional, and it was he woke me up. He was concerned. So I was like, when I woke up, I was like, it felt real. It felt like I was actually had just had a one-on-one conversation with her. Still her personality, but it was still that, I don't know. It was like I was aware, but I didn't want to believe, that she was no longer there, even though we were talking in the dream. It's kind of like a weird feeling. I was talking to her, asking her, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What's going on? Just, different questions. But it's like in my subconscious, I knew that she was not real, but yet it felt real. It felt real to me. And I felt maybe, I don't know, it brought some peace. It brought a lot of peace to me. And it was, it was kind of sad as well.
Yeah, I can only imagine that it brought you peace, but it made you sad at the same time,
Yes.
because she's gone.
Yes.
At that point, Paul is gone. You also talk, you've talked about Paul, and Paul really got, people talk very badly about Paul Murdaugh. That he was, the boat crash with Mallory Beach. I mean, it was horrific, a tragedy. His friends obviously loved Paul very dearly. Talk to me about the Paul Murdaugh that you knew.
He used to play jokes on me all the time since he was little. He used to either, walk by me and take stuff and hide it. And Paul was just a kid at heart. He loved the outdoors. He liked getting dirty. He liked getting on the machinery. Every time he would walk through the door, his demeanor was like, "What up, Miss B? How's the family doing?" He'd ask me individual, my kids' names individually. How are they doing? What did Big Mike? He calls my husband Big Mike. He's like, "What's Mr. Big Mike doing?" And just having her, what did you do this weekend? Or, whatever he had going on. I never saw that other side of him. I never did. He was always very respectful, very caring. And that was another side that's one side that people don't know, that if you asked him for help, he would help you. He would give you, just like Anthony Cook said in one of his, interviews, he would give you the shirt off his back. He would help you. He was a good kid with a lapse in judgment on that day. And unfortunately, it had consequences. But he had issues. He had issues, but he was depressed and he was having health problems. But Paul had that little boy curiosity, tried something. If it didn't go well, he loved gardening from a little kid. He would grow a garden and give the stuff away. He was just curious all the time. But he had that jokester personality also with me, and I want to remember him like that. I don't want to remember no more. I think the media I think the way he was portrayed in the media does not reflect who he truly was. He might have had that side. I didn't see it. And I'm not sitting here saying, oh, they're lying about him, because I wasn't there during some time. But as far as I know, that when I worked there when he was little, he was just a curious little boy getting into everything, always, trying to figure out. He was just curious about everything. He would scare me at times because he was like a little daredevil. He would climb out the window in the game room when they lived in Holly Street, and they would jump into the pool. And I mean, he would jump on the motorcycle and just ride around, and I would be kind of cautious, but that's just who he was. He was a little daredevil. He was curious. He was always just getting into things, but it was out of curiosity, not out of mischievous, I should say. But I have very good memories of him.
I want to go back to June of 2021. You get the word that Paul and Maggie have been murdered. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, you cooked dinner for them, you left the dinner, and then within hours, they're shot dead. What were your tell me about your reaction and walk me through that. Just, I have to imagine you just were stunned, like you didn't believe it at first.
The phone rang that morning, and at first I was like, why is Alex calling me? And I said, well, it could be Maggie, because when the battery would run low on her phone, she would call me from Alex's phone. And so I picked it up. And as soon as I picked up the call, I heard him say, he said, B, they're gone, B, they're gone. And he was crying, and it was like a high pitched cry, barely able to catch his breath. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're gone, B, they're gone. I said, my reaction was, did they go back to Edisto? It didn't cross my mind what he was trying to tell me. I didn't know. Even though he was crying, I thought, well, maybe he's upset because they went back to Edisto or something. I never imagined what came next when he said, no, B, they're dead. But he didn't tell me they had been shot. He didn't tell me how or anything. All I remember is he told me they're dead. And I dropped the phone. And my husband I was trying to process what Alex had told me, and my husband was asking me, what's going on? And he picked up the phone. I got the phone, and Alex said, B, they're gone. And he was crying. I said, I'm getting dressed. I said, I'll be right over. Where are you at? He said, I'm in Mama and Daddy's house in Alameda. I said, I'll be right over. And I hung up. I finished getting dressed, in a hurry. I got in my truck, and I went to Alameda to meet with him. And Buster was there when I arrived, and his girlfriend Brooklyn at Alameda. It doesn't take too long to get from my house to Alameda, but it felt like time was going like in slow motion. No matter, time was just going really, really slow in my mind. But I remember getting in my truck and turning off the radio right away, because I just did not want to ride and hear something on the radio, and then later on, I just didn't want no song to remind me of that particular moment, and I wanted to figure out what was going on, because in my mind I didn't know what had happened. All I knew is that they were dead. And I don't know, I felt like my time was going slow, but my heart was like, my heart felt like it was like going to come out of my chest, because I wanted to get out there, and it's like desperation. You don't know it was just like all kinds of feelings coming into one, a emotional roller coaster, like I describe it. You don't know how to feel. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that I had to get out there to see what I could do.
Alex Murdaugh, he's appealing the conviction. He is, he has never wavered in saying he did not kill Paul and Maggie. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you have any doubts? What are your thoughts?
I don't have any doubts anymore. I did in the beginning. I didn't want to believe it. But as time went on and I didn't watch his testimony live. I didn't want to see. I really didn't like people making fun of the fact that, he had snot coming out of his nose and he really wasn't crying. And to me, that's not amusing. And to me, that's just not, it's being judgmental. And I did not want to do that. To me, that's not a funny matter. And it's not, I'm not vindictive. And I just feel like there was moments where I don't think I could have handled that. And it's hard for me to watch him in that capacity when he's sitting on the stand. But even now, because I don't know the person anymore that's there. It's not the same person that I admired, that I looked up to. There's a lot of things that have changed. But at the moment, you don't feel all that. You still feel bad, for him. But I know, I know in my heart he will never admit. He will take that to his grave. He will always blame someone else for it.
Had Maggie ever mentioned to you anything about financial difficulties, about Alex drug abuse, any of that stuff?
She had absolutely no knowledge about the financial. When Maggie had her account where she paid the bills out of, the financial situation that was going on is because the contractor that they had hired, Maggie was having to, I believe the way it worked is he would hire subcontractors to come to either Edisto or Moselle. And those contractors, what Maggie had to do is count the number of contractors that were out there, what time they arrived, what time they left, what work they did. And then at the end of the week, she would have to pay that subcontracting company separate from the actual contractor. And it was confusing to her because she not only had contractors at Moselle, she had contractors going to Edisto. So that's where the financials, she was paying bill out of that account and also paying the contractors. But Alex never made mention of having any problems. He would, Maggie said he would, well, if I run low, I just need to let Alex know and he'll deposit the money in his account. And that's how I always remember. If she needed to pay bills or something came up, she's like, Alex, I need for you to put money in my account. And he would do it. So she was not aware of how he was doing things, or as far as I'm concerned, he never had a problem with that, with that. And she was not aware of any financial difficulty. Her only worry was the lawsuit that was coming up. And what is it, motion to compel? That was coming up that Thursday. That was her concern. Other than that, it was not, I guess, trying to figure out how it was going to be presented in court and what was going to happen, what the consequences of that lawsuit was going to be. But that was her worry, not because she was aware of anything else. She would have given up everything, to make it right. She knew it wasn't going to bring Mallory back, but she would have given it, she would have done what she had to do had it been up to her.
After the trial, I remember there was this interview that surfaced with an alleged manicurist saying that Maggie wanted to leave Alec. Did she ever say anything like that to you?
No. During the time that people say that she was looking for a divorce attorney, she was with her mother and her sister in Key West. So that was false. She was celebrating her mother's birthday. So that was totally false. And I believe it was a running joke in the house that Maggie was going to divorce out. And I've said this over and over. Maggie used to joke around and tell anytime there was some confusion or something going around, or she just felt, that they were, picking on her. She said, I'm going to divorce your dad and I'm going to marry Tom Brady. And that was a running joke. And I feel strongly that maybe perhaps somebody might have heard her say, I'm going to divorce Alex, and, but they didn't hear the full conversation. And I think that's how it probably got started. Somebody overheard her, and then it went from there. But there was never any indication that they were getting divorced. There was never any indication there was problems in the marriage. Nothing.
I know you still have Bubba.
I do.
And Bubba was Maggie's, favorite dog. But Bubba also played such a huge role in this trial. I mean, Bubba and Paul, but Bubba really blew up Alex Murdaugh's story, his alibi, with that video. So talk to me a little bit about how much it means to you to have Bubba.
When I first took Bubba with me, the thought never crossed my mind. I just wanted to make sure that if nobody else wanted him, I guess Buster had called around, and when he called me, he said, I can't get nobody to take him. So I don't know who he called. And he said, would you take him? I said, I most certainly will. I said, when can I go get him? Because I had a really hard time leaving him at the kennel when I left that day. And like I said, when he called me and told me, I said, can I go get him right now? And he said, yes, ma'am. So I went and got him. I never, even to this day, we don't, and I say we, my husband and I, we're just now starting to realize the impact that he's made and how popular he truly is. Up until recently, because you don't really think about that. You walk him, you talk to him, he does his little rolls where he'll come and lay, and if he wants attention, he'll come and he'll put his big old paw on you. We didn't really think about it until he started, Bubba, after the trial is, I think, when it started. When we realized, that he was famous. But he's rotten. He was rotten before I brought him to my house, and he's rotten now. So he commands his attention, and he wants his attention, and he wants to be babied. And but I'm truly thankful that I did get him, and that Buster thought of me to take him. And he's been really helpful in helping me process what has been going on. And I think I don't know, I think animals kind of feel that too. But I think the feeling's mutual between him and I. So he's just been a blessing to have him in my home. And I'll always be appreciative for Buster considering me and asking me to take him. It was a tremendous help to me personally.
Well, Blanca, is there, before I wrap this up, is there anything you'd like to say that I haven't touched on?
I just want people to understand that when you say bad things about Maggie and Paul, to consider how you say those things, even if you disagree with whatever their parenting or, his arrogance, because he was a little arrogant, Paul was. Be thoughtful and be respectful of her parents, the family. They're still processing it, and just be a little more thoughtful. Think before you say some ugly things, because I don't think. I mean, it might not make a difference. People are going to have their opinion, but the few that are listening, that will listen, think, about her family. Think about her son. They don't deserve to hear ugly things being said. They're no longer here to defend themselves, and I just want a little more respect with regard to them. However they feel about Alex, that's one thing, but be respectful. They are really good people. They're very humble people, and I think they deserve that respect. And that's all I'm asking. I just respect for the family before you speak and say negative things or ugly things about them.
Well, Blanca Simpson, the book is really good. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Within the House of Murdaugh, written by Blanca Simpson and her friend, Mary Frances Weaver, is now on sale on Amazon. Check it out. It's a great read. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.